Hi, I'm Kyle. I've been doing extreme programming since I picked up a book in 2000. We rebranded into Agile, and that's what I've been doing ever since. Seen a bunch of Agile, I've seen a bunch of transformations, and let's talk about how to do continuous transformation. So one of the things I've noticed as we look through agility over the last 20 years, I've seen a bunch of ways to solve problems, but I think you can categorize most ways to solve problems into one of three categories. So let's talk about those. Category number one, some problems should be solved by a hero, right? Hero solutions are great. They work for when you have a problem that you need to solve right now. And the way you solve it is you get an expert and you get out of the way. This is a great way to solve problems. You want your lawn mowed? Get an expert with a lawnmower and let them solve the problem of lawn mowing. If you have a one-off solution, if the solution is relatively simple, Hero is probably the best way to solve it. We solve a lot of software problems that way. Another method for solving problems is what we call the spreadsheet method. The spreadsheet method involves coordinating carefully. We always talk about it in terms of plan, schedule, and manage. Usually, it's a lot of people to make this the most effective method. When you have problems that are predictable, it's really good. When they're repeatable problems, it's really good. And it's an effective method of solving problems. And then there's a third method, which I tend to refer to as adaptive, and the goal is to succeed with surprises, right? When surprises are going to show up and you know surprises are going to show up, how do you make it work? Well, adapted methods do that, and we tend to solve those problems with feedback systems, focusing on most important things first, and teams so that we can all think at it together and not let my mistakes make the whole thing go wrong. So adaptive systems are really good under conditions of unpredictability, under conditions of change, and when you have an expectation of error. So for my point of view, it's really useful to think about solving problems in one of these three ways. So how do we solve software problems using Agile? Well, it's pretty easy. Use the adaptive model in Agile. And that means that we're going to have retrospectives every sprint, and we're going to have 2-week plans. We're not going to have plans that are 6 months long, right? Because things are going to change, things are unpredictable, we're going to have to update. We are going to make our decisions off of feedback systems. We're going to expect change. Our backlog, what we're going to get done, that's going to change too. Even our goal is a little bit squishy, and we expect the goal to change over time. And so to deal with Agile software projects, what we do is we do all of the adaptive model tricks. Great. How do we do Agile transformations? Well, I've been involved with a lot of Agile transformations these last 20 years, and I can tell you, every time I walk in and say, hey, we need to do it, or somebody says, we need to do an Agile transformation, here's how they do it. We use the spreadsheet model. What's our 5-year plan for doing our Agile transformation? What are the KPIs? Are we following the plan? Why are we off schedule, right? These are the questions that come up when we are trying to do an Agile transformation. What are we planning to be doing in January of 2023? Anyone see a problem with that? Okay, good. So here's the thing. For Agile software, if I have a team and 5 months, I can tell you that the plan I make at the beginning is reliably wrong. And so we do adaptive software work. It's pretty simple. If we have an Agile transformation, that often means we're trying to take 40 teams and 5 years. What's going to happen if we have 40 teams and 5 years? Well, I can tell you from experience, my plan is going to be more wrong. It's not just as wrong as the 5-month team level plan. It's more wrong than that because there's more moving parts, there's more unpredictability, there's more time frame, there's more change. Things are going to go wrong. So how about a little idea? Maybe we should do our agile transformations following the adaptive model as well. Maybe we should do continuous transformation instead. So, what principles do we tend to follow if we are trying to make an adaptive system work? Well, pretty simply, we've got about 3 principles, or at least these are the 3 principles I have found if you look at trying to figure out adaptive systems in sports, trying to figure out adaptive systems in the military, trying to figure out adaptive systems in economics or in manufacturing. What do you do when you have to deal with change and uncertainty? And the answer comes down to you build feedback systems instead of relying on your plan, instead of relying on an expert to get you through. We build feedback systems and we use that information to adjust where we're going over time. A second adaptive system principle that's really central to make any adaptive system work is we don't try to do all the things. We try and do the most important thing first. And doing the most important thing first is a very, very different model than following the schedule, right? Following the schedule says you do what's on the schedule when the schedule item comes up. Focus says you do the most important thing first until you're done with it, right? The alternate model is the screamers model, which means in software, whoever's screaming loudest gets their problem fixed. Right? That's fairly common. That's also not an effective way of dealing with adaptive systems. The third major thing we do in adaptive systems is we focus on teams instead of focusing on individual autonomy, and instead also of focusing on top-down direction. We focus on teams making decisions together. Okay? Those are the 3 general principles we run adaptive systems. And if you look at how to do adaptive systems and you look at really any place adaptive systems come up, you really have to approach it, and you will find that everybody who's ever run into these problems ends up at least using the general direction of these 3 principles. Build feedback systems, focus on the most important thing, not all the things, and use teams to solve problems, not individuals and not manager directedness. Okay, cool. So how would you do something with this in terms of transformations? Well, if you're going to do feedback systems for an agile transformation, we're trying to deal with the problem that the timelines are uncertain. So what can you do for feedback systems? Well, you change your planning horizon. Instead of saying, hey, here's my 5-year plan, you say, here's my 5-year direction. And then I'm going to make a plan not for 5 years, but for 2 or 3 months at the executive level. And we say, hey, we're going to go for 2 or 3 months. Here's the plan for 2 or 3 months. We're going to try and follow it. We may not follow it, but we're going to try to follow this direction. And then at the end of 2 or 3 months, we're going to figure out how we're doing, and we're going to change direction. Problem number 2, success is uncertain. In software, I write code and it doesn't work sometimes, right? What do? I inspect what's going on and I change how I'm doing it. I inspect and adapt, right? Because success is uncertain in software. Well, guess what? Success is also uncertain in organizational change, which is what an agile transformation is. organizational change has lower success rates than software projects do. So that means that if I'm going to work on an organizational change like an agile transformation, I should run my short planning horizons, and I should inspect and adapt so that I'm not just trying to follow a plan. Finally, one of the things we find about feedback systems is if you build the feedback system, then you get more information over time. And so you can do the right things at the right times, and you can make better decisions later on. In lean development, in lean manufacturing, we call that last responsible moment decision making. Make decisions when you need to, not as soon as you could. Make decisions later instead of sooner, unless it's expensive to make those decisions later. Another way to say this is we focus on preserving optionality. We focus on making decisions with reversibility so that we can basically approach our best decisions when we get there and we have the most information. Another one of the items we use in the ideas of Agile that are very applicable to transformation is everybody wants all the things, right? In economics, you say human beings have unlimited wants. We address that problem by doing the most important thing first. In software projects, because of other layers of uncertainty, that means sometimes we only do the most important thing. We don't try and do 8 things and get all of them 80% done. We try and do one thing and finish it. And then we try and do another thing and finish it. The notion of having unlimited wants means, and all software projects and all transformations all want all the things. So focusing on the most important things first is a really big deal. And that means not focusing on the other things early. Secondly, we have multitasking problems. We've done a bunch of psychology studies. Multitasking drops productivity. So focus on one thing at a time gets you a lot more work done. And then as this notion, hey, there's an awful lot of cases where we say we're 90% done. And in software, there's this saying, 90% done is a fake claim. You're never 90% done. You're done or you're not done. So Agile solution, which would be good for transformation too, and I have seen it more effective, is stop starting things and start finishing things. That also helps us as human beings with the cognitive load of working forward. The third area for handling adaptive systems is handling teams, handling the human factors. We've all heard the saying that culture eats strategy for breakfast. And so if you are going to do an organizational change like an agile transformation, you'd better get into the business of seeding culture, building a seed culture for people to work from, and using that culture to infect the rest of the organization. It's going to be a big deal. Another thing you want to pay attention to is that people are not robots. It's important to know, we all know it, but sometimes people say, oh, well, we should do these things. Paying attention to actual human psychology, things like, hey, working for 60 hours a week every week is less productive than working for 4. Those are important things to know. And finally, we want to make decisions where the information is, which mostly is at a team level, not at a senior leader level. Effective transformation is continuous transformation. Thank you.